More than 36 years after the murders of 3 members of an Aurora family, a suspect is now headed for trial. A judge ruled this afternoon that there is enough evidence to try Christopher Ewing in the 1984 murders of the Bennett family. A DNA match led police to focusing on Ewing as a suspect in the long unsolved case 2 years ago. Bruce and Deborah Bennett and their daughter Melissa were bludgeoned to death in January 1984 in a case that shocked the community. Another daughter, Vanessa Bennett, survived that attack. Police never found the murder weapon, but investigators suspect the killer used a construction hammer. The judge did not allow cameras in court today. This is Ewing at a hearing last spring. This morning, a police investigator testified that a 2018 DNA match revived what was then a cold case. He testified that Ewing's DNA matched DNA taken from a section of carpeting underneath Melissa Bennett's body and from a comforter in the room. She was sexually assaulted. The judge ruled that Ewing will be held without bail until he goes to trial on multiple counts of first-degree murder. There is no trial date yet. Ewing is due back in court August 27th for his arraignment. He also faces murder charges for the killing of Patricia Louise Smith in Lakewood, which happened just 6 days before the Bennett slayings.